Okay, given that f of x is equal to x squared plus 2x and g of x is equal to 3 minus x squared, we want to find f plus g, f minus g, f times g, and f divided by g. So let's take a look at the first one. So we want to find f plus g of x. And then once we do that, we need to find the domain of that function. So the definition states that we need to take f of x and add g of x. So here we have f of x, which is x squared plus 2x plus 3 minus x squared. Okay, now if we wanted to find the domain of this function right now, okay, we can put any value in for x and still evaluate it without any restrictions. So therefore, the domain is negative infinity to positive infinity. Okay, now we're going to simplify, so we're going to combine like terms. So we have x squared plus 2x plus 3 minus x squared. And so combining like terms, we can eliminate the x squareds. And then what's left is 2x plus 3. So therefore, there's our result, 2x plus 3. Okay, now let's take a look at f minus g. So we'll call this part A, and then part B, we have f minus g of x. And so the definition of that states that we need to take f of x and then subtract g of x. Again, f of x is x squared plus 2x, and then minus 3 minus x squared. If we take a look at the domain of this function, again, we can plug in any value in for x, and so that means that it's all real numbers, which goes from negative infinity to positive infinity. And now let's go ahead and then distribute and combine like terms. So we're going to distribute the minus sign, so we get x squared plus 2x. That becomes minus 3 and then plus x squared. Now when we combine like terms, we get 2x squared plus 2x minus 3. So we get 2x squared plus 2x minus 3. Okay, let's take a look at f times g. So we'll call that part C. So we have f times g of x. And the definition states that we need to take the function f of x and multiply it by g of x. So f of x is x squared plus 2x times 3 minus x squared. So currently right now we can plug in any value in for x. So that means the domain of this function is all real numbers. We can plug any value in and evaluate. So it's going from negative infinity to positive infinity. Now let's go ahead and multiply. So we have x squared and then 2x, and then we're going to multiply that by 3 minus x squared. So x squared times 3 is 3x squared. X squared times minus x is minus x to the 4th. 2x times 3 is 6x. And 2x times minus x squared is negative 2x cubed. So in this scenario here, there's nothing for us to combine, so we have negative x to the 4th minus 2x cubed plus 3x squared plus 6x. So therefore, we have negative x to the 4th minus 2x cubed plus 3x squared plus 6x. Okay, now let's take a look at part D. We want to take f and then divide it by g of x. So that means we're going to take f of x and then divide it by g of x. So f of x we know is x squared plus 2x, and then divide that by 3 minus x squared. Okay, so in our numerator we can factor. We can factor out an x and then get x plus 2. In a denominator we can't factor that, so we have to leave it as 3 minus x squared. So now we need to find the domain of this function. So let's find a domain in step number 5. We're going to set 3 minus x squared equal to 0 and then solve. So we have 3 minus x squared, subtract 3 to both sides, and then divide by a negative, so we get x squared, which is equal to 3. And then if we take the square root of both sides, then it means we take the square root of plus or minus 3. So x is going to equal plus or minus the square root of 3, which means it cannot equal that value. So on our number line, we know that we have 0. We know that we have negative square root of 3. We know that we have a positive square root of 3. And so we know that it's going from negative infinity to negative square root of 3, and then negative square root of 3 to square root of 3, and then square root of 3 to positive infinity. So what can we say about our domain of this function? Well, the domain goes from, right over here, negative infinity to negative square root of 3, union negative square root of 3 to positive square root of 3, union square root of 3 to infinity. So we can go ahead and then write that up here. So there is the domain of this function. And then in part 6, we just need to simplify. Well, we have x times x plus 2 divided by 3 minus x squared, so we can't simplify that any further. So therefore, there is our result.